Clinical trials serve as the cornerstone of medical research, playing an indispensable role in advancing healthcare practices and shaping treatment protocols. However, the underrepresentation of Hispanic healthcare providers in conducting research and Hispanic patients in participating in clinical trials underscores systemic issues that impede progress in biomedical science and in equitable healthcare provisions. Today, our diverse panel comprises representatives from the federal government, pharmaceutical industry, and a community healthcare provider. Our discussion today is centered on emphasizing the importance of inclusivity in research practices, thereby bolstering scientific progress and ensuring fair access to healthcare for all segments of the population. Our speakers include Dr. Alejandra Gurtman, Senior Vice President and Head of the Vaccine Clinical Research Development at Pfizer. The second speaker is Dr. Mena from the California Liver Research Institute. Our third panelist is Mr. Nader Daoud from Moderna. And the last panelist is Dr. Mendoza, Director of Health Equity's NIH All of Us Research Program.
And to browse this very commitments that Pfizer has made, I moved to your attention to this work, and I really the first two, where participants were located in Chinese will reflect the racial demographics of the countries and communities in which we are conducting our clinical studies, and that we will continue to expand how we use the institute and trials to include the experience of our participants. The other is that we will always continue to share our knowledge and results with the scientific community, especially those scientific journals, but also continue to bring education to the general population to understand how critical it is for the future. And we move into the era of AI, we will probably put advantage to seek our elusive tools to bring participants to clinical trials. And with that, I hope I'm doing you in 7 minutes. Thank you, will be happy to answer questions.
Why don't we get the Spanish consent at the beginning? You know my site is 90% Latino. You know I speak Spanish. That should be done immediately, and it's not. Well, one of the things that I always get as to reasons why my Latino patient can't enroll into clinical trials. Number one, there's always that fear or mistrust about being an experiment. I always call it the guinea pig effect. Number two, a lot of times our patients are the primary care providers for their families. They're the abuelitas taking care of the grandkids, they're taking care of their families, so they can't take the time sometimes to participate in all the parts of the clinical trial that are involved. The number one cause that I get is transportation. And we pay and sponsor for the Uber or whatever transportation that they require, but they always tell us transportation because sometimes they have a significant other, a family member driving them to their appointments. The number one cause I get is lack of communication with the primary care provider. A lot of times my patients will go back and they think that the primary care provider is walking on water, and that's a good thing, and they'll go back and discuss with their primary care provider being in a clinical trial, and sometimes the primary care provider will tell me, no, you shouldn't do that. So educating the primary care provider about clinical trials is important. A lot of times they spend in the United States and in the country of origin, so that time commitment is an issue. And there's always that fear of the placebo. So these are just some of the few list of things that we have as to why patients don't participate. So what did we decide to do in my office? Well, we said, hey, we just can't sit here in our pretty office in Pasadena with a nice research center and a nice view. We got all this equipment. How are we going to get patients enrolled in clinical trials? So we always say we take it to the streets. We go to the area that needs it. So we partner with FHQC clinics. We partner with clinics that are in underserved areas. And what we do, we go to them. So I have a team of extended providers. I have 3 physician assistants. And we go, on the picture to the left is my physician assistants talking about nutrition and lifestyle changes in either a health fair or a community setting. We have a really neat device called a FibroScan or transient elastography, where we put this little probe over the patient's liver, and this machine reads the liver, almost equal to a liver biopsy. So we take it out to our community outreach centers, and we really like to partner with underserved areas and areas that need Latino, because a lot of times patients are a little sometimes scared to come to, let's say, a special research clinic, so it's easier for us to come to them. So if we partner with the leadership of those FQAC clinics, we find it easier and better for us and the patients. And we always like to educate primary care providers on clinical trials, why clinical trials is an added benefit. Yes, we have the current drugs out on the market, now we're going to get better drugs. So the beauty of clinical trials is we're always evolving and changing and trying to get better. And that's the message I always want to say about clinical trials. That is my last slide. I hope you did the 7 minutes. But you're going to ask a question.
And really making sure that you meet people where they are, because it's one thing to be able to bring people to your trials, it's another thing to take your trials to them. And it's really something that I think we take for granted when you think about how much someone actually has to put into a clinical trial, even for something as simple as a vaccine trial. You're expected to come in, week after week, multiple months. You have kids, job, even a pet. It's not really easy to take that time, right? So how do you actually make it as simple as possible for someone to participate when they're really just trying to do the right thing, typically, especially for our healthy volunteer trials and vaccines? Optionality is the last part. And again, sort of on the things you've heard before from Dr. Mena, everyone's different, and it really matters that we take into account 3 things that you might see here, or that you see here. The time commitment that it takes, like I was mentioning, just to be in a clinical trial, the amount of work that they have to do as well with regards to not just the commitment, but having to then be in the actual visit for X amount of time, right? And then remembering that trial activities aren't always easy, right? You're expected to do your e-diary, you're expected to do visits, you're expected to do calls, you're expected to enter in adverse events, right? You have to report these. All that in addition to your daily life. How are we making that easy for you? Are we asking you to do that in an e-diary that's not even translated into Spanish? And so the reality is that when thinking about our trials in the future, we're thinking about making sure that we can have them be more flexible. Right? So 80% of Moderna's protocols in 2023 actually have some sort of flexible optionality to include telemedicine or visits that are otherwise non-traditional. And the idea behind this is what we hear from patients is that, again, it is a burden, and it shouldn't be. And the reality is that it's on the sponsor to make sure that it isn't. So to close, getting close to the end here, within 7 minutes, maybe a little bit over. So I'm going to close real quick. We're enrolling and retaining diverse participants across the board, not just with regards to race and ethnicity, as you can see there, but also with age and sex, and increasing accessibility to the potential therapies of tomorrow in doing so. So really making sure that we take a holistic approach, can't just copy and paste, and we want to build confidence in our communities, combat mistrust and distrust by partnering with community voices that are trusted in those areas, and again, really making sure that the data and the objectives that we set aren't just for the population that exists in a country or area, but for the disease burden that exists for the education that we're running the trial. Thank you.
So in addition to returning genetic information to participants, de-identified participant genetic and health data is also available to fuel health research. So this is possible through something that we call the All of Us Research Hub, which allows for something called tiered data access, ensuring data from participants is available to the public, and researchers while also keeping the data secure. So the first tier is called the public tier, and that includes access to aggregated data that provides overviews of participants' characteristics and data types through data snapshots and the data browser. You can also view the types of questions that are being asked participants by reviewing the Survey Explorer, and anyone can review the types of research taking place by reviewing what we call the Research Projects Directory. And this aggregated, anonymized data is all publicly available, no login is needed. And for those that decide they would like to become what we call a registered researcher with the All of Us program, they can then access curated individual level data in a variety of research tools to conduct a wide range of studies. So registered researchers can access participant survey responses, EHRs, physical measurements, and Fitbit data. And finally, if you're a registered researcher, you have the option to go through additional trainings and permissions to gain access to what we call our third and final tier, which is the control tier, which includes access to expanded demographics and genomics and other data, which will someday include individual biospecimens. So that's the researcher workbench, where you can access all sorts of data and ask a ton of interesting, diverse research questions. So to wrap things up, all of us is working to change the future of health research by providing high-quality data that reflects the diversity of the U.S. My call to action for you is I encourage you to either, one, join as a participant. You can go to joinallofus.org, and or if you want to become a researcher and access the data, you can sign up at researchallofus.org. Thanks, and happy to take any questions.